Yo, what's going on? My name is Gareth. I'm from an organization called Man Up. I'm the co-founder. We've got people coming from various backgrounds to share their experiences around how masculinity has affected them, what it means to be healthy as a man, as well as what are some harmful stereotypes and understandings of masculinity.
My name is Leighton.
My name is Varad Makedkar.
My name's Carissa.
My name's Aaron Hardy.
So my name is Ryan Mark Linton.
My name's Nicolette. I'm Kate.
Yeah, my name's Simone McGurk. I'm the Minister for Youth in the state government.
And I co-founded a charity called 20 Talk.
And we are the co-founders of We Are Women.
And I'm here on behalf of Man Up today. I've been part of Man Up since about midway through 2021.
And I'm very passionate about discussions around masculinity.
Spent a lot of time around sporting teams. I currently play for the Perth Scorchers and Western Australia cricket team.
I co-founded a community called Cold Nips, which is just basically at the core a community.
For me, masculinity just meant being a man. And so I didn't really know what that meant or what was behind all of that. So my experience around masculinity it came from my background, my childhood, the school that I went to, the environment that I was in.
Being able to touch into these almost the dangerous part of yourself, the part of yourself that can confront the challenges of the world, can confront the bully, but then also this extreme vulnerable side, which lays everything on the table at the right situation.
It's kind of what you want it to be. I think traditionally there was a very strict concept of what masculinity was, you know, back in the day. And even to this day, masculinity is like your big kind of footy player, loves to drink, gets all the girls. But I think the day and age we live in now is where it can really be anything that you want it to be.
Masculinity to me is being authentic in who you are and sharing that with people.
Is about the behaviours and values that are expected from society towards men, and also the expectations that men put on themselves.
Can-do attitude, there's taking leadership or taking control of situations. Think about all of those positive aspects of masculinity.
When a person is able to embody those masculine traits such as assertiveness, dominance, and use it when the situation calls for it, right? So
To put into a phrase is respecting boundaries. Healthy masculinity is respecting boundaries when it comes to women, it's respecting boundaries when it comes to your mates, having those courageous conversations.
As I said, I think sharing your aggression in like a safe way, being like expressive of how you feel, I think that's like a positive way to show your masculinity. And also I think, yeah, being able to express yourself in a safe way, in a vulnerable way.
I think one of the big pillars in a healthy masculinity is calling out people when they sort of step out of line or do something that doesn't align with a healthy society and the way they approach masculinity.
I think a healthy man is like emotionally regulated. They're emotionally sovereign within themselves. They show virality. I think they show strength, power, assertiveness, good decision-making skills, aggressive too. But all of these can be like used in a bad way. But the way that I truly see masculinity is in service of.
Yeah, and I think being aware of your privilege, being comfortable in who you are, like you can really tell a guy, like, wow, like they're just so confident in themselves and they're so much more attractive and like positive people to be around just because they're like, oh, I can express my emotions, I can show my behavior, I can talk about how I feel.
Yeah.
I support women, like really supportive of all women's rights.
toxic masculinity is when a man feels that pressure to conform to masculine stereotypes so much so that they interfere with their well-being and the well-being of others.
Toxic masculinity is men not being able to express their emotions, their feelings, having to put up like a strong wall, having to be that protective person, not allowed to cry. And I think it can be really, really harmful for men.
I guess having that carefree attitude in terms of hurting other people around you, not being open to feedback, the arrogance of it, the aggressiveness of it, not in a term of like not being aggressive, because I think aggressive can also be a really positive thing.
The idea of the negative side of masculinity where you're encouraged to do things which you know are not good for society, are not good for your mental health, other people's mental health, physical health.
Toxic masculinity for me would be like oppressive behaviour, it'd be like physical violence, uncontrolled anger, over-sexualisation.
I think I would talk from personal experience of like harmful men, and I see it every time, I go into Fremantle and someone says, "I'll give us a smile, doll." Or someone picks on me because of the way that I'm dressed.
I think you can kind of go into a toxic masculinity cycle when you haven't been given the tool sets to touch on the vulnerable sides of your life. If the only way of expression you have is through anger, is through fear, and is through hurting other people, then that is going to be your mode of expressing feelings. If you're not provided role models, if you're not provided the tool sets to kind of show you that vulnerability is okay, it's going to go into a destructive cycle. Before I was 18 years old, I was the traditional, toxic masculinity. Used to get into a lot of fights. In fact, my nose is actually broken. And I used to do boxing. I used to embody the darker sides of masculinity and try to impress people. And it often led into like dangerous situations.
It's been so much throughout my life of just like aggression from men, or, you know, even people within my family that feel like they need to act a certain way because they are the head of the family, the male of the family, so they need to act like that.
Yeah, it's had pretty big impact on my life. And it's something where when I look at my life on the 1st of March in 2021, and that was the day I found out one of my best mates, Michael, had taken his own life. And when it comes to this topic of masculinity, I remember thinking the day after he passed away about all the conversations we'd had within our friend group, and we never ever spoke about mental health. It was always about games or girls or just random stuff. In fact, a couple of weeks before Michael passed away, he'd actually left our Snapchat group. He just left and he said, I need a break. And none of us really took the time to actually ask him about why. And I also never, especially now the work that I do within the mental health space, you know, we talk so much to boys about having these conversations, you know, asking the important questions like, are you thinking about killing yourself?
My experience of masculinity is that it's allowed me to take up space in more challenging spaces in terms of like being around cis men, for example. Presenting myself authentically in a masculine way has intimidated people. However, it's staying true to who I am and my authenticity. So I haven't really shied away from it.
When I was younger, I was void of masculinity in my life and what masculinity is. But now, uncovering masculinity, I feel far more aligned with who I am and on a much more authentic path, and just more in touch with my nature and what it means to be a male. Not having good male role models in my life, bad behaviours, adults pretending to be adults that are really acting in a childish way. It's as simple as that, really. Not in alignment, yeah.
I think a huge one for me is knowing your own values and sticking to them no matter what. I see a lot of friends who have succumbed to peer pressure over the years, but if you can really know yourself and know what your goals are, what your values are, and who you want to be as a person, if you can become really confident in those, peer pressure's nowhere near as relevant, because you know what you want to do, you know what's right for you at that time.
We've all got a role to play. It's not someone else that's going to fix this, it's going to be us. It's going to be all of us to call out bad behaviour, to question it.
I think it's one of those things, especially we walk around wearing this logo, Man Up. I think a lot of I've also had a lot of my family friends think, oh, Man Up, that's awesome. Like you must be the perfect man. I think there is also a lot of pressure when you wear this shirt. We talk from such a moral high ground of all the amazing things we should do. But the truth is that no one is perfect. So the number one thing I would say is to speak to your mates about it. When I say speak to your mates, I mean about mental health, but it's so important to have the courage to call them out when they do stuff wrong.
My advice is, again, it's that reflectiveness and being open to making mistakes. Because even as a people in general, I think we're, again, kind of built to be really critical when we make mistakes and get things wrong and stuff like that. So if you're going to own your behaviour and be accountable, then that's my advice, is own that behaviour. Otherwise, you're not going to change or be open to change. My advice is you can be wrong and you can make mistakes. We're not saying to not do that, but it's unlearning bias. Like, I think as even a person that I am, I have had to unlearn biases to put my ego down and be open to feedback and connecting with different people and stuff like that. So again, you have to have some willingness to break down those walls that you have and those biases to be able to let other people in. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere, kind of thing.
We've had an awareness as a community for a while about domestic violence and in all of its forms, but it's really started to pick up pace. The community campaign and awareness and government action has really started to pick up pace in the last 5 or so years, and as it should, because it is still at very high rates in Western Australia and Australia. So we've got to do better, and we've got to understand what's causing it, as well as calling it out and responding to it in a criminal way, but also in a societal way, in a cultural way. It's going to be a generational issue. I think it's going to take a generation to change these sort of attitudes. And the challenge always is, while we've got awareness of the crisis issues, the funding often gets drawn down to those areas, and we've spent a lot of money, tens of millions of dollars of new funding to dealing with domestic violence. As you say, we're doing some respectful relationships training in schools now, so that's really positive, but it's really all hands on deck if we really want to turn this around. Change is uncomfortable, so when we're challenging men and boys to change the perceptions of masculinity, the perceptions of what it's like to be male in our community, that can be uncomfortable. But I also think we need to give people room to change and an opportunity to express what's happening for them when we've been sending them very mixed messages for a long time as a society.
I think as a community, it's obviously having inclusive and diverse spaces.
And like I guess we said, it comes from everyone. So with us, obviously we've partnered with health organisation. We need to work together.
Some spaces might not always feel like that, but if you're actively trying to find, like you did today, like different types of people with different faces and different stories, I think that's the only way we're going to learn.
Having the conversations and speaking to the boys about it at a young age, all the work that amazing organisations are doing goes hand in hand with the education system. It's something that needs to become a part of the curriculum, because these kinds of lessons are things that extend far beyond maths and science, you know, far beyond life skills.
We all need to work together to actually create that safer community. So what this might mean is that women in this space need to understand, how can we bring men to tap into that feminine side, to be vulnerable, and men in this community, how can we basically call ourselves out when we're engaging in behaviours that could potentially be harmful to other groups in society, and rather than seeing it as a divide, like it's men versus women, it's us as a community working together as just humans trying to become better.
I think we can start by creating a positive idea of masculinity by not presenting it as necessarily a bad thing. I think if we want to have healthy masculine men, we can't be calling them all toxic. We need to get men on our side if we want to change the environment.
As a minister and a member of parliament, I've got to know a little bit about Man Up's work, and also 20 Talk, who's had a big role to play in Fremantle, and this is absolutely crucial work. It's not only calling out bad behaviour, but it's giving boys and men the space to talk about what's going on.
Assertiveness, vulnerability, presence.
I think of strength, I think of assertiveness, and I think of leadership.
I think empowering. Again, I think vulnerable.
I think emotions, toughness, and it's evolving.
Emotional regulation, virality, and in service of.
First one is suicide, second one is drinking, and the third one is call-out culture.
Strong, determined, sometimes aggressive.